It's the World Rapid Championship, and we've got a clash of titans, Magnus Carlsen with the white pieces, taking on the formidable Viktor Laznicka, and we open with a very solid, symmetrical London system. Both players are mirroring each other's moves, developing their pieces to natural squares and building a solid pawn structure in the center. After some quiet setup, white is the first to break the symmetry. The knight hops into the center to e5, immediately creating tension and asking black a question. And bishop to d3, a brilliant move from Magnus. He offers a piece sacrifice not for immediate gain, but to open up lines and maintain crushing pressure in the center. A truly deep idea. Laznicka accepts the trade on d3, and after the recapture immediately challenges white's strong central knight by bringing his own knight out to e4, pawn to h3. Another brilliant sacrifice from Carlsen. He's happy to give up a pawn to clear the d2 square for his queen, preparing to castle queenside and keep the attack flowing. Incredible stuff. Black takes the bait, and a flurry of trades erupts in the center. The knights and bishops are exchanged, simplifying the position just a little, and the pawn recaptures on d6. A fantastic move from Laznicka, and the only one that keeps the balance. Here's why it was so critical. If white tries to attack with pawn to a4, black can play rook to c8. After pawn to a5, queen to c7 simply wins a piece for black. White castles long, and after a few more preparatory moves, black follows suit, also castling queenside. With kings on the same side, the game shifts from a direct attack to a complex strategic battle. Now we enter a phase of deep maneuvering. Both players are probing, improving their piece placement, and preparing for the decisive clash. The tension is building with every move. The central pawns are finally traded off, opening the e-file. White immediately seizes the chance to launch a pawn storm on the queen side, pushing forward with c4 to attack black's king. The pressure mounts as white's pawns roll forward to c5 and b4. Black's queen shifts around, trying to find counterplay, but white's initiative on the queen side is becoming very dangerous. White's pawn storm continues, with a4 and b5 cramping black's position. Laznicka is forced onto the back foot, his queen pushed into a more defensive role on e6, but here, queen to b4 is an inaccuracy from the world champion. It gives away a big part of his advantage and gives black a golden opportunity to equalize by pushing the a-pawn, and black misses it. This was the moment to strike back and get into the game. The correct punishing move was pawn to a5. After queen to c4, the queens come off the board, and after rook takes on c4, rook to g6 keeps the game level. But instead of that, Laznicka plays rook to c8, a mistake that lets white completely off the hook and hands the winning advantage right back. And Magnus doesn't need a second invitation. Pawn to c6 is a great move, the only one that wins, kicking off a sequence that will net him a decisive pawn. Black plays knight to b6, but this is another slip. With this move, white's attack becomes overwhelming, and the engine now sees a line to win a full rook. Pawn to a5. A slight inaccuracy from Carlsen, but he remains in complete command of the position. The pressure is still immense. A forced sequence follows. The knight is driven back, the b-pawn is captured, and the rooks are exchanged, liquidating the position into a clearly winning endgame for white. Carlsen plays knight to d3, which is an inaccuracy that gives black a little bit of hope. The stronger continuation was pawn to a6 with check. The king moves to b8, knight to c4 follows, and after rook to e6, the knight jumps to a5, keeping black completely tangled up. But in the game, the knight moves to d3, and suddenly black has some breathing room, and black's knight finds the excellent defensive square on c7, holding the position together. Knight to c5 with check, another small slip from white. While still better, this allows black to consolidate a bit more. The check forces black's king over to the edge of the board at a8, a dangerous place to be. And white pushes the pawn to b6, creating a monster-passed pawn that black will struggle to contain. Black captures with pawn takes b6, but this is inaccurate. This recapture allows white to create a winning attack that will now win a piece. Pawn takes pawn on b6. A fantastic find from Carlsen, and the only move that maintains the win, exploiting the helpless position of the black king. The knight comes to a6 in a desperate attempt to set up a blockade against the rampaging pawn. And here, a shocking mistake from Magnus. He pushes the pawn prematurely, letting a clear win slip through his fingers. The correct way was to eliminate the defender first. Knight takes the knight on a6. After queen takes the pawn, knight to c7 is a check. The king moves to b7, and knight to b5 wins material cleanly. Instead of that crushing line, he pushes pawn to b7 with check, and the game is suddenly back on, and king to a7, a fantastic, only move from Laznicka to stay in the game. He steps his king into the fire to create his own threats. And this is the point. Now, after queen to a4, black has rook to b6 check. The white king must move, and queen to d6 gives black tremendous counterplay. Carlsen takes the knight on a6, but this is another inaccuracy, and the win is gone. The position is now nearly equal. The best chance was queen to a4, and after rook to g6, the king steps to c2. If queen to b6, the king sidesteps to d1, and white is still pressing for the win. But after the move in the game, knight takes knight on a6, Laznicka has a golden opportunity to save the draw. And oh no, the decisive blunder of the game. Recapturing with the rook on a6 is a tragic mistake that loses on the spot. He had a clear path to a draw. The saving move was rook to b6. After rook to c8, the king could take the knight on a6, and even after the pawn promotes to a knight with check, the king moves to b7, and black holds the game. But in a moment of high tension, he plays rook takes knight on a6, and this allows a beautiful forced win for white, and Magnus pounces with rook to c8, a brilliant game-ending shot. It's all over. Black is facing a forced checkmate and has no choice but to resign. And with that, Viktor Laznicka resigns, and Magnus Carlsen takes the win. Black resigned because he saw the unstoppable mating sequence coming. Here's the finish. Black's only move is rook to b6. The pawn promotes to a queen with check. The rook is forced to take the new queen on b8. And now, queen takes the rook on b8 with check. The king must step to a6, and a swift checkmate follows.